Welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest.
And I'm Cameron with Self-Help Therapy.
Cool, yeah, this is the second video and probably maybe the last one, who knows, that me and Cameron are doing. If you didn't see the last one, Cameron's my buddy from school out here. I was fixing his car one day. He's almost done with his PhD, right?
Yep.
At BYU out here in psychology, and so we were talking one day about different psychological things that have to do with cars, and I thought, hey, let's make a video about it, collab our two channels. And so if you're interested in psychology stuff, his channel is going to be tagged in the video title and the link in the top of the description, so check out his channel if you like psychology stuff. And today we're going to be talking about just kind of like psychological things that happen to you, and as well a little bit of my experiences, what to do when you get in a vehicle wreck.
Yeah. So obviously when you get into a car wreck, there's going to be a lot of things going on, and it's going to be hard to remember, okay, what do I need to do? What's going to keep me safe? How do I respond with the other driver? Like, there's just a lot. And in driver's ed and everything, they don't put you in like a simulated crash they should though, but
yeah, that's a good idea now that you mention it.
Yeah, we'll trademark that. But anyway, it's something that I think is going to be really beneficial for people to know at least a little bit about what to do and what to expect psychologically and how to help that, so that you can mitigate any of those negative effects that are going to come from being in a crash.
Yeah, so a lot of people will relate to this because you've been in a car crash, and I've even seen people get in a car crash at like 2 miles an hour. Well, personal experience, one time I was pulling out of work and this lady who was turning right in front of me started to go and stopped, and I was looking left to make sure I could still go, and I didn't stop, but she did. So I hit her bumper like 2 miles an hour. There wasn't even a mark, nothing even happened at the end, but she was so shooken up from like this 2 mile an hour crash. So all sorts of experiences people have, some super gnarly, but even just the smallest little thing can really get your nerves going.
Yeah, which actually leads to probably one of the most important pieces of advice I give, at least when it comes to a car crash, and that is to act calm. And it's important to realize that I'm saying act calm instead of be calm, because you're not going to be calm. I mean, the brain, when you're in a car crash, is registering the event as a direct and physical threat. So it's seeing that there's intense danger right there. And so if your heart is racing, you're short of breath, and you're feeling really furious or worried or whatever, that's okay, because it's completely normal. It's your brain and body doing their jobs. And it's important though to, even though you feel terrible and freaked out and whatever, it's important to at least act calm, because that's what's going to get the situation to be resolved the quickest and most effectively. And if you think about it, you might be thinking, well, how am I supposed to act a way that I don't feel? And we do it all the time, right? Maybe you have a boss or a manager who you really hate and really gets under your skin. You might be at work and they might be really boiling your blood and everything, but you're still able to act professional and kind toward them, even though you might hate their guts, right? So it's possible, and it's especially important in an auto accident to act calm.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of times when people get in a crash, they'll get super mad. They'll get out, like wanting to hit somebody, yelling at the person that maybe hit them, or maybe you hit somebody. But here's the thing, maybe somebody hit you and you get out and you're super mad. Well, 2 minutes later, the police pull up. That person may be scared and like have calmed down or like be really suppressed. You may be the one out there super mad, yelling and stuff. Those police are probably going to start looking at you first. So you're going to look real suspicious. So, not just psychologically like, oh, this is going to help you, like, you may get in some trouble too, because you can't calm your nerves, cause public disturbance. They can start writing you tickets for, driving, because if maybe you didn't have your license with you, maybe your registration is expired. They'll start nitpicking things, and you'll get in trouble if you start acting, crazy. So just really calm it down.
Yeah, and it's just really important that you at least act calm, especially toward the other person, because there's going to be so many factors at play that maybe you're not even aware of, that they're going to play a big part in getting everything resolved. So the other really important thing too is to not admit fault, and because the other insurance company is going to do plenty of that for you. They're going to try to point fingers at you, and it's hard because, especially when it might actually be our fault, it's still important that you don't admit fault, because there could be a lot of other things at play that you're not aware of at the time of the crash, right? So under no circumstances should you admit fault, especially at the scene of the crash. And like I said, this is hard. So in a second, we're going to teach you some ways to help get over that if that's a tendency.
Yeah. So I always recommend that everybody has a dash cam. If you can afford, they're pretty cheap. Maybe it's your fault, but it just gives you so much more, like, it's physical evidence of exactly what happened. Something that comes to mind is the Boosted Boys. One time, Kyle got in a car crash in his hatchback Civic, and the lady admitted fault. he said right there, oh, the lady admitted fault. He didn't get it on video. But it kind of, here's what happened, and this happened to me too. One time somebody hit me when I was riding my bicycle in town here with their car. He's like, oh, that was my bad. That was my bad. He admitted fault. And what it did to me was I started trusting this guy. He's like, that's my bad. I'll pay for your bicycle. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, he's going to pay for my bicycle. He knows he did it. He knows it's his fault. He's like, give me your phone number and I'll pay for your bicycle, man. Hopefully you're okay. I'm like, yeah, I live a block away. I'm like, I'll text you how much it was here in a little bit. And like all of a sudden off the bat, this guy's like admitting his fault. I start trusting him, and next thing I know, I get home and he never answers me again. I didn't get his license plate number, nothing. Same thing happened with Kyle with the Boosted Boys, I believe, that they weren't ever able to get that figured out with his Civic hatchback. And shout out to Kyle at Boosted Boys. But even if somebody else admits fault, or just be careful if people admit fault. Maybe if you get it on camera, great, but don't let your guard down if somebody admits fault, and don't admit fault yourself.
Yep. And admitting fault could be something as simple as, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I've seen instances where people have been able to use that against them when they're trying to settle the whole thing. And so just staying clear and trying to not admit any fault, or even saying sorry, which I know is hard, especially psychologically, because like you want to be able to say that you're sorry, especially if it's your fault, but that's something you got to refrain from doing.
Yeah.
The next one, because a lot of these things are going to be hard to remember in the moment, so I've come up with a little bit of a cool acronym, and it's AAA, which kind of matches if you use AAA. So
yeah.
When you get in an accident, think AAA, even if you don't have AAA. And these are those 3 A's. The first one is to act calm, which we already talked about. Even though you're not going to feel calm, it's important to at least try to act calm, especially when you're talking with police and witnesses and things like that. You just got to be able to stay calm. And then the second one is to ask, are you okay? And this one kind of goes along with like not admitting fault. And so a good question or a good replacement, instead of saying like, oh, I'm so sorry, or that was my fault, you can just simply ask, are you okay?
That's cool. I like that.
Because then, you don't feel like a total jerk, but then you're also not admitting any fault by just asking, hey, are you okay? Which is going to give you some information about the third A, which is to emergency services. So it's obviously important that you call the police, but it's also important to at least call like an ambulance or medical attention. Even if it's ambiguous whether or not that's needed, it's always better to be safe than sorry.
All right, so second to last thing here, these are like things from my perspective that I've seen, and I've witnessed quite a few crashes. I've come up on crashes, before EMT services, helped somebody tourniquet their arm because he was bleeding out, and just been in some crashes. But one thing I've seen, especially since being a mechanic, when I've started noticing, turn your vehicle off. Your vehicle doesn't shut off sometimes when you get in a crash. Some Fords and vehicles are very good, and like Jeeps, they have crash sensors in them that'll cut the power to the fuel pump, but some vehicles continue running up. I came on a car one time that was upside down and it was still running, so turn it off, because you don't want something to happen. If you're not injured, it's the law to move your vehicle off to the side of the road, but so many people get flustered. I've seen here in town people get in crashes all the time because drivers are so bad out here. They'll get like in a fender bender and stop in the middle of the lane. Like, if nobody's injured out here, it's the law. Get to the shoulder of the road. Like, and I've had people hit me and they've stopped, and I'm like, all right, pull over. We're blocking traffic, and that's kind of like going fast in the slow in the fast lane. Just get out, stop blocking traffic. Like, get off to the side, call the police. Out here, you have to report every single vehicle incident. So again, going with that, and again, maybe they admit fault, but if you don't make a police report, you can't ever claim anything against them. So you make a police report, even if it's their fault and they say they're going to pay for it. Make sure that you get things taken care of. So just be aware, like, what's going on, especially if you come up on the crash. Obviously, if you're in it, it's a little harder to be you're flustered. But if you can help somebody get their car off the road, make sure it shuts off so it's not running. A lot of times fender benders, you'll bust your radiator, so you may save that person their vehicle. People often rebuild their vehicles after car crashes because it'll save them some money. So rather than overheating their vehicle and seizing it up, if you shut it off for them, they may be able to replace their radiator and get it running. So just think kind of smart while you're if they're not seriously injured, that takes priority. But if they're not seriously injured, just think about like what's the most practical thing to do here. So
yeah. And really the last point that I think is important to make is talking about what psychological effects could happen after a car crash, because like I said, the brain registers it as a very serious event, life-threatening sometimes. And what we know about post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, a lot of people hear about that and they think that it's only for military veterans or people who have been in war, but really what we know about PTSD is that it's any actual or threatened death or serious injury, and it could even be death or serious injury that we just witnessed somebody else experiencing. So there's a lot of nuance to PTSD that I think is important to keep in mind if you're suffering after a car crash. So what I'm going to do, because there's a bunch of different symptoms along with PTSD that can be pretty stressful for people to try to manage, but I'll make a video on my own channel. I'll throw that up there about PTSD, especially in conjunction to car collisions, so that people can watch that so they can find some sort of relief from whatever symptoms they might be experiencing because of that.
Totally. So just be aware PTSD is common. Like, a lot of people don't recognize it. But if you've experienced a crash, you were in a crash, even if you just witnessed one, and you get real nervous about driving and stuff like that, it may be PTSD. Cameron's going to do an awesome video on that, so check it out on his channel. Again, it's in the description and the video title. If you just click on his name, it'll take you to his channel, and you can see more about PTSD and how that relates to car accidents, even what to do, you know, if you feel like you're experiencing that.
Yeah, and I really think that a lot of these things, you know, there's just a lot that goes on in a car crash that a lot of people don't really talk about. So hopefully some of these pointers were a good introduction to you to at least get you thinking about some of the things to consider when you're in a car crash and what could happen even after the car crash. And hopefully you guys are all able to stay safe out there. And this has been a good video that we could make.
Yeah, and thanks so much for Cameron. These are awesome things that, you know, more than I knew. I was obviously only sometimes able to provide personal experiences or from my own customers, but Cameron's awesome, knows all this psychology stuff. So again, if that stuff's interesting to you, man, check out his channel. And thanks again so much to Cameron for coming out and helping me make these videos. Hopefully it benefits some of you guys. That's why I like doing them. And yeah, leave any questions you have in the comments down below. Maybe Cameron will be checking them out as well. We can try and answer some of your questions. So
yeah. And that's a job well done.